Who better to talk about farming with than a nuclear engineer? He also happens to be the founder of Sweet Farm and the Sweet Farm Foundation. I want to bring on my guest today, Nate Selpeter. I'm glad to have you with me today.
A lot of people who have even been plant-based, and vegan for their entire adult lives don't realize that plant-based agriculture, including especially organic agriculture, is largely propped up by animal agriculture. So fertilizers, for instance, largely come from bone meal, blood meal, feather meal, fish meal, manure, right? And those commodities, those products, come directly out of animal exploitation. So what Sweet Farm does is we have a practice called veganic agriculture. We are learning an incredible amount through this process. In many ways, we're taking a page out of the Rodale Institute in terms of like setting up experiments of like, oh, this is working and this is not. That is valuable information we can share.
I think you've sort of dropped a bomb on people. A lot of people don't realize that, of course, their plants are grown. So plants, and then that means their plant-based foods are grown with animal manure, and that animal manure is coming from factory farmed animals. That's where it gets made, if you will, for lack of a better expression, and then turned into manure. So if you are doing veganic farming, tell me then, where are you getting your nitrogen source exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really fun one. A couple of places. One is cover cropping, which is a well-established process by which you're planting during the off season. You're planting legumes and other nitrogen fixing crops. So your winter rye and your bell beans and other things on the ground, in which you then work back into the soil. So you can then cut it and then lay it down in ground mulch. We don't do spraying, and we're not using harsh chemicals. We're not using herbicides out here. So that helps in that regard. For our compost program, we actually integrate in the shavings from our barns, right? Our animals have bedding in their barns. So that adds a carbon source. We also integrate in something called biochar. Humans are part of the ecosystem, believe it or not. There are 7.8 billion people on this planet. And for whatever reason, people have started to draw the boundary of a plant-based ecosystem with just the plant, right? They say, okay, here's the plant, here's nitrogen sources but what's not accounted for is the fact that humans are going in, picking the tomato, eating the tomato, and then guess what? We have our own outputs as well. So bringing it back to our nitrogen source now. Bioforce Tech, amazing company. They created a self-sustaining process that can do what's called pyrolyzing this biomass. They can do it in a way that is carbon negative. So you take the biomass out of the wastewater treatment, you burn it at a very high temperature with a very low oxygen content, and it turns 100 tons of biomass into 1 ton of biochar. And it breaks down all of the pharmaceuticals, all of the pathogens, all of the polyfluoral alkyls, the nonstick coatings on your pans. All of that becomes carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, constituent elements, right? Benign elements at that point. And the carbon source becomes a great water retention device when you integrate it into the soil. It absorbs nitrogen from your compost pile and then releases it more slowly. It also provides a little micro hotel for the beneficial mycorrhiza and rhizobium that help with root communication and nutrient transfer within the ground. So we did their very first field trials, and we've been helping them, grow and expand as a company, and integrate into municipalities all over the country and world.
I think what I've taken away from this, and of course I'll have more questions, but we can repurpose some of these awful chemicals, which we need to do anyway, and use them to our own benefit, as well as we ourselves have an output. So there are other options than animal manure